What's up, everybody? It's Damp. For those of you who don't know me, I am a newer YouTuber who has recently been streaming this game. I'm usually stream Darkest Dungeon. I make a lot of Darkest Dungeon video content. Been doing some DayZ and some Ark stuff also too, but I was actually streaming this the other day, and a lot of people came in and asked questions. I have about 150 to Actually, I'm right around 200 hours now in the game. I've completed multiple scenarios and stuff. So they were asking a lot of questions, and I thought I'd do a quick video to walk through like my top 10 tips that I'd give you if you're a newer player. So here we go. So like first tip I would give you on day one, you want to go through and scavenge everything you possibly can, hopefully on day one. This is a scenario where you only have one guy, but grab absolutely everything and go through as quickly as possible to loot as much as you can. If you have 2 or 3 people, you want to have one person make a shovel and a crowbar as the first 2 items, because you're going to need to get through some of those trash piles or rubbish piles, scrap piles, whatever you want to call them. And it takes a long time if you have to do it by hand. It's really, really inefficient. So you should always have a shovel to dig through these piles, otherwise it'll take forever. And just to give you an example, if you've never seen it before, I'll have him dig in the background while I move on to my next tip. But day one, really push to make a shovel, make a crowbar, and hopefully you'll get through all of these things that you need to loot. The reason I say don't get lockpicks, even though these have a little lockpick icon on them, is the next tip, which is the crowbar can replace lockpicks, and you should always use the crowbar instead of a lockpick. The only disadvantage is it makes more noise, but making more noise is not usually a big deal, and then probably 90 to 95% of the scenarios you're going to run into. So what I'd recommend is always bringing a crowbar on the first run that you go to. Try and open everything that you see in one run. That way you don't have to bring the crowbar back next time. So open everything and really try and go through and dig through all the rubble piles as well while you're there. But you ideally want to save your lockpicks and trade them away. They're too valuable to utilize just to open one thing. Next thing I'll talk about kind of briefly is stealing. I got a lot of questions about stealing. So stealing's not okay in the game. You can do it, but in the long term, it's probably going to hurt you. It should be a last resort. In some scenarios, you do need to steal. As some of the scenarios can be really long, like 40 days plus. That shows you kind of how long that took. But 40 days plus, when you're down to 40 days, you're really running into a bad time if you don't get to steal. And you're going to need to do it whether you like it or not. But it has such a negative impact on your morale, and you really want to try and avoid that as much as possible. Especially in the hospital, you want to be careful. There's a lot of guards, and the first time you're in there, you're like, oh, I can open this with a crowbar. It's actually considered stealing there. Most of the time, you can tell the icon looks like 2 fingers trying to pick something up. That's usually when you don't want to steal, unless you absolutely have to. The next thing is, you see me doing some building right here. Try and have what I'll call save your steps, because time is of the essence. You can already tell we're almost through the first day. But as time is of the essence, build your things, plan out how you're going to build things, and try and build them in a line. Build your bed close to the things that you interact with the most. I typically will put my food traps in the same row that I will with the food, knowing that they're going to have to run back and forth between there. Save your steps. It save yourself a lot of time. That can be very important later on in the game. So absolutely save your steps. Really, really critical. And now I will see if I can dig through. I'll go up here and dig through this loot pile for you guys to show the difference of the shovel. The next thing I'd tell you on like day 2 or even day 1, board up your windows ASAP. That should be the first thing you want to do. So with that, my next tip would be not only board up your windows and reinforce your door as quickly as possible, because that saves you from a lot of raids, but your next item of business should be when you're on your first few scavenges that you're going out, you want to make sure you're prioritizing wood, because you want to board everything up, and then really components and parts are the next thing. And when the trader comes, try and take as much wood from him, because it's stuff that you don't have to go out and take. Wood takes up a lot of slots. You only get 2 per slot, and it makes it really heavy, so to speak, to carry back. So that's the next tip I'd give you. The next thing that's really, really important, a lot of people don't understand, is how to manage your hunger. So a lot of people try and keep morale, or they try and keep everybody really well fed. The pro tip I'd give you is let everybody get to very hungry and very tired before you feed them and before you send them to bed. My first few plays, I didn't really understand that. It actually made it significantly more difficult trying to keep everybody fed all the time. Only feed them when they are very hungry, and only send them to bed when they are very tired. Now, there are going to be some exceptions. When they're wounded, you want to make sure to get them in a bed as soon as possible. Throw a bandage on them. Slightly wounded, just get them to bed. You don't have to waste the bandage. That's another tip there. The next tip is help everybody. So you're going to have a lot of opportunities where you can't afford to help someone, and that's okay. But in most of the situations, you want to try and help where you can, because usually it's paid back to you later on in the game. So when you have the opportunities to help people, please make sure that you do that when you can, because it will make your life a lot easier later in the game. Sometimes they'll help you out. Sometimes they'll bring you, additional favors, or they'll do something to try and help you. So that's my next recommendation. And then the last one is the knife is OP. Make it as early as you can and use the sneak attack. I'll be doing videos to kind of show you guys how to do those, but my recommendation would be use the knife rather than trying to use a gun when you're going through places and you're trying to scavenge and then you have to kill people, because it does happen. But use the sneak attack. Don't try and kill people with guns. It just makes it very, very messy. No pun intended. It's very difficult to do. So with that, I kept the 10 tips in like under 8 minutes, so hopefully that was helpful to you guys. I appreciate the views. I'll actually come out with a few more Darkest Dungeon videos with some like fine print tips that aren't really covered in this. These are the things I thought that would help you the most early on. So for new players, those are some tips, and I'll come out with a few videos just showing a few of the interactions and a couple things that I think would help you for mid to late game too. So either way, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below if there's other tips you'd add in, and thanks for watching. See ya.